Hey guys, and welcome to another video. So I've just spent the last 1 to 2 hours analyzing something that really got me thinking. I wanted to share it in the video. The question that I've had is I keep listening to those podcasts and I keep hearing the same thing. Everyone is saying that using leverage is exactly what you need to do in property. So there's good debt and bad debt. There's the Rich Dad, Poor Dad book that everyone looks at. And really, it's this confusing thing for me, which is where the property gurus recommend, or a lot of property people recommend, that you, even if you have the money, you still use banks' money and mortgages to scale up your portfolio. So, having kind of questioned that, I thought, why don't I look at three options? One is just buying a flat outright. Two is using that same money that you have sitting there to buy a few flats with an interest-only mortgage. And then three is to use the money that you have to buy three properties or a few properties with the repayment mortgage. So one is a cash buy, two is buying a few properties interest on the mortgage, and three buying a few properties with a repayment mortgage. So imagine you have around £100,000 sitting there. Just for simplicity, say that's the money that you have to spend. What should you do with it? Should you just buy something cash and it gives you a good asset, or should you buy a few properties and get into debt even though you don't need to? My sort of the instincts inside of me are saying just buy one property, you're going to own it fully, you're going to be fully in control, it's going to be your asset, you can buy it, enjoy it, and that's it. Having a look on Rightmove, for example, something like this at £90,000, a decent flat, the kitchen's not too bad, the bathroom is done with wet wall panels, something like that. It's got a garden in the back, something like that will get rented easily, pay it off in one go, rent it, enjoy the rent, and then in the future you can look at accumulating that rent, maybe doing something with it, and it's going to be great. Why, if you could just buy one like that, why complicate things? Why get extra borrowings? It doesn't make sense, right? Well, I've made a spreadsheet and it will kind of walk through all the options, pros and cons. So let's go through it. This is my opinion, this is my analysis. If you pick anything out that you want to comment on, please comment below. I'm keen to hear views from you guys, but hopefully it makes sense. So, taking a flat like the one we just saw is £90,000. In Scotland, you have to pay 8% ADS, so 7.2k. You have to pay about 1,500 legal. And I've said we don't do much of a refurb there, so we put some alarms, compliance items in there, do a bit of touching up of painting, a bit of patching up in places, and get it rented. So all in, you're at about £100,000. So assuming that's the money that you've had sitting there, you can just buy that property with that. So as I said, there's three options. Option one is to just buy that one property with cash. Option two is to buy three properties like that with an interest on the mortgage. And then so that's option two, and option three is to buy three properties like that with a capital repayment mortgage. So what I want to do is I want to look at the long-term picture, a 10-year view of if you buy one property, where are you going to be in 10 years? How has that £100,000 worked for you? How much money did it make you? If you buy three properties with an interest on the mortgage, how well has that money worked for you, and a repayment mortgage? And hopefully that will give you an idea of what's right and what's wrong depending on your circumstances. So let's go through this analysis. Okay, so 10-year view, option Y, buy with cash. I've assumed that every year this property is going to go up by 5%. This is very reasonable considering the area and where it is. It can actually be more. So in 10 years time, this property that you bought for £90,000 is now going to be worth £146,601. That's conservative. It could actually be more than that. Also, you'll be renting it, say, for about £850 a month, which is a reasonable rent for that area. In 10 years, you will make £102,000 from the rent that you have received. I have approximated over the 10-year period £10,000 of maintenance, so about £1,000 a year. Some of it is compliance, some of it is ad hoc repairs here and there. So that's what I've allowed for maintenance. Obviously, you have put in initially £100,000. So what I want to calculate is the profit on that £100,000. So that's why I'm taking it off. And this is how I calculate the profit. So I take the value of the property that you currently have. I take the rent that you've received over the 10 years. I subtract the maintenance that you've spent. And I've subtracted that initial cash that's been invested in. So in terms of profit, that makes you £138,601. So it means that if you keep that one property, if you don't take any money out, if you just keep accumulating, you would have more than doubled your money in 10 years, which is pretty fantastic. Another thing is the monthly cash flow. So what's quite important is how much do you get every month? Because a lot of the time your profit can be tied in capital growth, which is a bit more difficult. But just in terms of the monthly cash flow, how much do you get? The way I've calculated that is just taking the rent that you receive minus the maintenance, which is your only really real expense because you don't have a mortgage here, and you're going to be getting around £767 per month. Depending on whether it's in company or personal name, you can then be taking it out and you have different tax implications on that. But roughly, this is what you'd be getting as a monthly cash flow plus your capital appreciation, which you can't see necessarily, but in 10 years time or whenever you want, you can refinance the place, you can sell it, there are options there. So you make £138,000 profit if you buy this one property with cash. So pretty impressive and relatively low stress. So next option we have is to buy 3 properties like this one with an interest on the mortgage. So you would be paying 3 times the additional dwelling supplement, so 21,600. You will have to have a deposit of 25% 3 times, so that's the deposit that you need. You'll be paying the legal 3 times, compliance 3 times. So overall, you'll spend 97,500. But the difference now is that instead of owning one property outright, you own 25% of 3 properties. And you've spent slightly less than what you did in option 1. So this time is a bit more stressful. You don't own it outright, you have debt on those properties, and you have potentially a bit more of a calculation to do. But let's do it and see where we end up. Because you now have 3 properties, the overall value starts off at 90,000 times 3, so 270,000. And with that same capital appreciation, you're up to 439,000. So I'll say again, 90,000 times 3, 270. In 10 years, 439 in a conservative way. So with the first option, you have gained 56,000 in capital appreciation. In the second option, you have gained 170,000 almost in capital appreciation. So that's already a very obvious benefit. You will have received 3 times the rent as well, which is really obvious. You've got one property there, so you get 102k. Got 3 properties there, so you get 306. Because it's an interest-only mortgage, the 75% that you've borrowed, you're only going to be paying interest on it. So after 10 years, you will still owe the same amount. So it can be stressful and a bit annoying because you think, I'm buying this property, I have this much debt, in 10 years, I'll still be owing the same amount of debt. So why should I do it? But bear with me, let's analyze it. The debt will stay the same, £202,500. Which is 75% of the £270,000 that you spent on the 390k properties. You will have paid £121,500 interest. It is assumed at 6%. Obviously, if the interest comes down, then it's going to be less. But this is roughly what you would have paid over the 10 years to service the mortgage that you have. You'll then pay 30 grand in maintenance, same 10 grand we've allowed for before, but for 3 properties. You've initially invested 97,500. So there is your overall profit. How did I calculate that? Well, I've taken your value that's currently there for your properties, added the rent, and then subtracted the debt that you still have to pay off because you still owe that amount of money. Subtracted the interest because you have paid that, or you have paid that to service the debt, so that's an expense. Subtracted the maintenance as well, and then subtracted the initial investment because again we're looking at profit here. And what we ended up with here is £294,302 profit. What that obviously means is that you are tripling your money. So in here you're going from 100k to £138,000 profit. So you're getting sort of 2 and a bit times the amount. And in here you start off with 100k and you're making a profit of 294,000. So if you do option 1, you're getting 2.4 times your money. And if you are doing this interest on the mortgage approach, you're getting 4.02, so 4 times your money in 10 years. So very, very impressive. There is tax implications. It's not just going to be as simple as investing 100k 10 years, you've got 400 in your account. There will be tax implication, but just looking at it simply, this is why it's a better strategy, because you're controlling larger assets. The same appreciation for the larger assets goes into your portfolio. You own those assets, so therefore you get more financial benefit out of it. So that's option 2 with the interest on the mortgage. And now let's look at option 3, which is capital repayment mortgage. So again, you have 3 times the ADS, 3 times the deposit, 3 times the legal, 3 times compliance. So you've spent exactly the same amount of money. In 10 years time, the value that you have is the same as option 2. You get the same rent as option 2. The difference with this one is that after 10 years, your debt would have actually decreased because every month you're paying partly interest, partly capital. So you're going from 202,500 down to 131,000. So you would have paid off some of the debt, which is good. You then have your 10 years interest. So the interest to service the mortgage, it's slightly lower in this case because part of what you're paying is for debt. And therefore, the equity that you've accumulated over those 10 years, because that's the amount that you've paid off overall, you've accumulated £71,500 of equity by paying every month. Same maintenance of 30 grand for the 3 flats, and initial cash is 97,500. So the calculation I did here is relatively simple. I've taken your 10-year value, added the rent, took off the debt, took off the interest like before. I've actually taken off the equity accumulated because you have been paying it from the rent. So the rent that you get, part of it goes towards paying interest and part of it goes towards the equity. It's a bit complicated because the part that goes towards the equity is after the profit, so this number might be a bit high at the moment, but this is just to give you a general idea. You then take off the maintenance and the initial cash invested. So this is not a fully representative figure, but again, it gives you an idea. You are up overall by 313,000, and again, if we did a quick calculation, you have that plus your 97,500 invested divided by 97,500. You're getting 4.2 times your money. Maybe if you take the fact that the equity comes out after tax, this might come down to a similar figure to this. But overall, it's quite similar. It's not too much worse, which is why I think this one is a bit underrated. There's this whole buzz about just going for interest only, but actually capital repayment can also work relatively well. I suppose there is a big plus of the interest on the mortgage. And what that is with the first option, where you buy one property with cash, your monthly cash flow is £767 per month. So that's what you could be building up, you could potentially use to take out for yourself, reinvest into the business or whatever it might be. Whereas with the option 2, because the interest on the mortgage monthly payment is less, you end up with a monthly cash flow of £1,288 for the 3 properties. So what that means is that you can potentially reinvest this cash flow. After it gets taxed, you'll be left with more money and you can scale faster. So when you have this, maybe the overall profit after 10 years is a tiny bit less than what it is with a capital repayment mortgage, but you can keep utilizing that money, so you can keep reinvesting the money and getting more and more and more. And remember, when you control more assets, all of those figures go up exponentially. So if you're playing your cards right with this option 2, you can be buying more and more properties because you have higher monthly cash flow, and therefore you can be ballooning those numbers, which is why people do it. And then with the capital repayment mortgage, it's 730, so you can see significantly less. You'll be tying up some of that money to be paying off the capital part of the mortgage, which is good because your mortgage will be paid off quicker, but it just means your potential for growth is a little bit inhibited, so you won't be buying as many properties as you would with this option 2. So I suppose the recap is we've looked at 90k property, and if you've got £100,000 available sitting there, do you invest it in just one property, which is option 1? And the answer is maybe yes, maybe no. If you want to have a relatively easy, stress-free investment that still gives you really good return, this is a good way to go. But if you want to have a return that's higher and you're going to have potentially more work with servicing the mortgage, etc., you should really go for option 2 and 3, which is where you buy a few properties with a mortgage, control a larger value of it, take advantage of the capital appreciation for those properties, and you can end up with 4 times the money in 10 years, or even 4.2 times. If you just want to have that one investment working for you and that's it, probably capital repayment mortgage, 3 properties is the best way to go. If you want to make that investment and potentially be accumulating money as quickly as possible for the next potential flat, house, whatever it might be, then interest-only mortgage is the way to go. So I'm hoping you are agreeing with my calculations here. I hope they make sense. Let me know in the comments what you think about all this. Let me know if you prefer to buy with cash, with interest only, or repayment mortgages. But this is something that's been bugging me for a long time, so I'm just happy that this spreadsheet gave me some clarity on the type of advantages you get with a capital repayment mortgage, with an interest only mortgage, and with cash. I hope you enjoyed the video. I will share the link. Actually, YouTube blocked one of the links that I've put in for some reason, so if you want me to share the link or send it to you, just comment or message me and I will do that. And yeah, hope you've enjoyed the video. Subscribe, don't forget, this is very important to me. I want to gain subscribers. I want to build a bit of a community that is also passionate about this stuff with me. And see you in the next video. Thanks all.